WDR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink and West Africa, the Macross Radio broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Insurgents abduct over 300 residents in northeast Nigeria.
When they attacked, we heard sporadic gunshots, then fled into the bush for safety, where we spent the night.
Burkina Faso sentences several people linked to female genital mutilation practice. President Mahama urges unity and discipline as Ghana marks the 69th independent anniversary.
Independence granted us freedom, but freedom demands responsibility in how we manage public resources, in adhering to the law.
And Guinea's Economic and Financial Crimes Code freezes former Prime Minister on humanitarian conditions. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jibril Janko.
Many thanks for joining us. We begin in Nigeria with reports of another deadly attack in the country's northeast. In the early hours of Wednesday, insurgents stormed a community in Goza local government area of Borno State, killing several residents and setting homes on fire. The exact number of casualties remain unclear, but residents say more than 300 people were abducted during the assault. From Abuja, WDR's Yechinus Asetu reports.
Wednesday's attack in Goza lasted several hours before the air component of Operation Hadinkai intervened and reportedly pushed the insurgents back into nearby forest. The spokesperson for the Borno State Police Command, ASP Nahum Dasu, confirmed that civilians were affected during the attack but could not confirm the exact number of casualties. Security analyst Babagana Bukar Wakil, who has been monitoring developments in the area, gives an account of the violent night.
A town undergoes a local government that was recently resettled by the state government in collaboration with the federal government and the Nigerian security operative came under a very heavy attacks of the terrorists, and most of the residents have fled their community.
But for residents of Ngoshi, the attack leaves behind a heavy scar. Several villagers were killed and hundreds are feared abducted. Shaibu Dabawa, District Secretary of Ngoshe in Goza local government area, says the situation remains dire.
When they attacked, we heard sporadic gunshots, then fled into the bush for safety, where we spent the night. More than 300 people were abducted by terrorists during the attack. There is no military presence in Ngoshi for now, raising security concerns.
Residents are calling for increased security presence and urgent humanitarian support for those displaced by the violence. As a reminder, Borno State, northeast Nigeria, is epicenter of the protracted Boko Haram insurgency that has killed thousands and displaced millions of people. For WADR, Yechinis Asitu reporting.
In neighboring Benin, a military border post has been targeted by terrorists. The assault in the Kamin of Kerimama in northern Benin near the border with Nigeria was claimed by the terrorist group JNIM. According to security sources, Wednesday's attack left more than a dozen people dead. Imo Eded has the rest of the details.
The new attack claimed by the Group for the Support of Islam and Muslims, JNRM, took place on Wednesday. The assault targeted a Beninese army military camp in the village of Kufono, located about 15 kilometers from the Niger border. According to James Johnson, spokesperson for the Beninese army, 15 soldiers lost their lives and 5 others were injured in the attack. The army spokesperson added that the military camp remains under the control of government forces following the deployment of a tactical squad accompanied by air support in a counter-operation. The same source reported that the response operation led to the neutralization of at least 4 assailants. The attack comes amid ongoing security concerns in northern Benin. Border areas with Niger and Burkina Faso continue to face repeated incursions by armed groups, despite strengthened military reinforcement in recent years. Just a week earlier, the Wara police station near the border with Nigeria was also targeted in an attack. The assailants caused material damage, including setting a pickup truck on fire. To counter these threats, the authorities of Benin and Nigeria are working on a security cooperation agreement aimed at strengthening surveillance along their shared borders.
Imo Edet with that report by WDR's Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Asule. Now to Ghana, as the country marks its 69th independence anniversary today, March 6, 2026. The anniversary commemorates the end of the British colonial rule and the country's attainment of sovereignty on March 6, 1957. Delivering his Independence Day address, President John Dramani Mahama calls on Ghanaians to put the country first, setting aside political, ethnic and personal interest. The president said the celebration should serve not only as a moment of reflection, but also a reminder of the shared responsibility to build a prosperous and united nation. President Mahama also announced the signing of the 24-hour economy bill into law, which he says marks a turning point for the country's economic growth. Here is an excerpt from President Mahama's speech among other issues of concern.
Today, as we mark our 69th independence anniversary, we do so under the theme, Building Prosperity, Inspiring Hope. This theme is more than just ceremonial. It represents a covenant between the government and the governed, a solemn promise that every decision we make and every policy we implement must foster prosperity and renew hope for every Ghanaian. Every administration, regardless of its political inclination, has played its part in building the nation we all proudly call Ghana. Our democracy has endured because we've learned to compete without destroying, to disagree without hatred, and to transfer power peacefully, which is evidence of the maturity and the wisdom of the Ghanaian people. My fellow citizens, when I took office, you granted me a clear mandate to reset our nation, Ghana. Resetting Ghana goes beyond simply managing our issues. It involves transforming how we govern, how we produce, and how we share the fruits of our prosperity.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama. Meanwhile, as Ghana marks 69 years of independence, a section of Ghanaians, particularly the youth, are calling on the government to place a greater focus on tackling unemployment. They describe unemployment as one of the country's most pressing challenges. While acknowledging the strides Ghana had made over the decades in areas such as democracy, education, and cultural identity, many young people say meaningful job opportunities are critical to securing a better future. Here are young people's reactions.
Employment for the youth. Our source of employment.
For me, the lack of opportunities for young people, because today we are talking about 55 Ghanaians killed in the Russia-Ukraine war. You're asking yourself, what are Ghanaians doing there? It's because they do not find enough opportunities here. So
they are lured abroad to engage in these.
They would, and most of them, I bet you, the 272 Ghanaians who are currently in them, I can tell you for a fact that over 90% of them were not told this is why you're being co-opted into Russia or Ukraine. And so I believe that when we are able to provide enough opportunities in the country for young people, we would get a situation where we would develop even better than we are currently.
That we know all the things that you are not proud of. What about the other parts that excites you about being Ghanaian and makes you so proud?
Ghana really has made me proud. I mean, when you look at our customs, our tradition, our clothing, everything, there has been more improvements.
I would say that the peace we've been enjoying so far.
Well, for me, the fact that we've been able to maintain our fourth Republican dispensation without any coup is one thing that I'm excited about, because you can't say same for other African countries, and you look at the security that we seem to be enjoying in this country, it's compared to none. Because when you look at our neighbors, all of them have in one way or the other suffered security threats and attacks here and there.
Ghanaians reflecting on their 69th independence anniversary.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Togo, two crucial bills have been adopted by the Senate during the second plenary sitting of the extraordinary session of 2026. The first concerns the harmonization of the legal and fiscal framework governing West African gas pipeline with that of partner countries, notably Nigeria, Benin and Ghana. The second relates to the extension of the security state of emergency in the Savannah region. Let's join Augustine Kohli for more.
With the adoption of the bill relating to the West African gas pipeline, Togolese authorities aim to align the country's legal and fiscal framework with that of other partner states involved in the project. This harmonization is expected to facilitate the management of the pipeline and strengthen energy cooperation among the participating countries. Robert Kofi Misan-Iklo, Minister Delegate to the Minister of Economy in charge of Energy and Mineral Resources, provided further details.
The text you have just adopted reflects a clear intention to adopt our legislation to evolve in energy, economic and regulatory context while safeguarding the nation's higher interests. This reform not only strengthens the project's legal security and clarifies the applicable fiscal provisions, but also reinforces the balance between investment attractiveness and national sovereignty. It further ensures greater consistency with existing legislation.
The lawmakers also approved the extension of the security state of emergency in the Savannas region for another 12 months. The measure is intended to allow authorities continuing efforts to address persistent security threats in this northern border area of the country. Both bills will now be sent to the National Assembly for final adoption in accordance with Togo's legislative procedures.
Augustine Akoli filed that report. Crossing over to Guinea, the Court for Repression of Economic and Financial Crimes, CRIF, has ordered the release of former Prime Minister Ibrahima Kassori Fofana. The decision, made for medical reasons, has sparked a range of reactions among those involved in the case. Kassori Fofana is facing charges of embezzlement of public funds, illicit enrichment and money laundering. Osman Omar has more.
At a session of the Court for the Repression of Economic and Financial Crimes, Judge Daye Mara noted the absence of the defendant in court. The prosecution explains that he had repeatedly refused to appear due to health reasons. A letter from the National Prison Administration was presented confirming the severity of the former Prime Minister's illness. Based on this, the prosecution, represented by Special Prosecutor Ali Toure, requested his release so he could receive proper medical care.
The defendant has been hospitalized for quite some time. He developed several health complications and has remained under medical care at the state's expense for years. For humanitarian reasons, we requested the court to grant him temporary release while the rest of the procedure continues.
Lawyer Sidiki Berete stated that his client's health remains a serious concern.
Better late than never. Even if he is released, he cannot return home because he still requires intensive medical care. I will continue to urge the justice system to go beyond provisional release and to allow him the opportunity to travel for proper treatment.
Represented by Pepe Antoine Lama, the civil party welcomed the decision as an act of humanity while emphasizing the need to protect their interests as the case proceeds.
The issue of his release is not our main concern. As the civil party, what matters most to us is the protection of our civil interest. In this case, the interests of the state are sufficiently safeguarded.
Former Prime Minister Ibrahima Kassori Fofana has been in pre-trial detention since May 31, 2022 and remains under investigation by CRIF, with hearings set to resume later this month.
A report by our Conakry correspondent Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Balde and presented by Osman Omar. In Burkina Faso, female genital mutilation remains a pressing issue despite being illegal. Recently, several individuals were sentenced in cases involving 2 young girls. Judicial authorities have reaffirmed their commitment to eradicating this harmful practice. Francis Boniface completes the story.
The most recent case was heard earlier this week during a mobile court session held in the rural commune of Puni by the High Court of Kodougou. 4 individuals were prosecuted for the excision of 4 baby girls aged between 3 and 24 months. The case was reported in January, and the suspects were referred to the prosecution on January 14. The court sentenced them to 12 months in prison, including 3 months to be served, and imposed a fine of 500,000 CFA francs. Before this, another case was heard on February 17 by the criminal court in Bobo Dioulasso. 3 women were prosecuted for taking a 4-year-old girl to a traditional exisa in the village of Kiri, located near Burkina Faso's second largest city, so that she could undergo the procedure. The incident dates back to January 6, 2026. The suspects were arrested following an anonymous tip-off. In court, the accused admitted the charges. They were sentenced to a 12-month suspended prison term and fined 500,000 CFA francs. Magistrates emphasized that female genital mutilation constitutes a serious violation of children's physical integrity and stressed that combating the practice requires the involvement of the entire society. In recent years, organizations defending the rights of girls have stepped up advocacy efforts to end female genital mutilation, which persist despite being outlawed in Burkina Faso.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Terrorists abduct over 300 residents in northeast Nigeria. Burkina Faso sentences several people linked to female genital mutilation practice. President Mahama urges unity and discipline as Ghana marks 69th independence anniversary. And Guinea's Economic and Financial Crimes Code freezes former Prime Minister on humanitarian conditions. Still ahead, we have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Liberia, former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf addressed the House of Representatives on Thursday, marking the first time a former president has done so in the post-war era. Her address focused on critical reforms needed to foster inclusivity and enhance national development. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's speech also underscored Liberia's ongoing efforts to address long-standing issues of citizenship and representation. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Packer reports.
The address was based on an invitation from the leadership of the House of Representatives for the former Liberian president to speak on current national issues. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf called for an amendment to Article 27B of the Liberian Constitution, allowing people of non-Negro descent to become citizens of Liberia.
We tried in the past to do constitutional reform. Former interim president Dr. Amos Sawyer led the committee that made tremendous progress, but that racist provision was left intact. My plea now is that you consider the necessary amendment.
The former Liberian president, among others, advocated for an increase in women's leadership to promote good governance. Speaking, House Speaker Richard Tekun said the historic address from Sirleaf, Africa's first female head of state and a Nobel Peace Prize winner, will set the pace for the country's forward movement.
The address on the important questions surrounding Liberia's urbanization policy, the involving discourse on citizenship for people of Negro descent, land rights, speaks to some of the key issues confronting our nations today.
In Liberia, obtaining Liberian citizenship is highly restricted, primarily based on race and ancestry, with current laws requiring applicants to be of Negro descent. The process involves naturalization for individuals of African descent or citizenship by birth or descent. The legislature is therefore expected to deliberate on the recommendations to enable legal and social reforms in Liberia. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
In a related parliamentary development, the Speaker of the National Assembly of the Gambia is calling on African parliaments to promote democratic governance and development across the continent. Fabakary Tombong Jatta, who also chairs the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Africa region, made remarks at the opening of the association's 90th Executive Committee meeting in Namibia. The week-long event, which wraps up today, brings together speakers of parliament and parliamentary staff from across Africa. WDR's Sang Donald Mendy completes the story.
The meeting focuses on strengthening parliaments and boosting their role in supporting democracy across Commonwealth countries. Speaking on Thursday, Fabakary Tombong said African legislatures must work together to reinforce democratic institutions and improve governance for citizens.
At a time when democratic institutions and with the new status comes responsibility. Responsibility to strengthen our diplomatic engagement, responsibility to enhance our collective cooperation, and responsibility to deepen our relevance to the 1.3 billion citizens of the African Commonwealth whom we collectively serve.
While progress has been made, the Speaker of the Gambia National Assembly called on parliaments to anticipate challenges rather than just react to them. His call comes amid increasing political, economic, and social pressures.
Across our continent, parliaments are confronted with economic volatility and physical stress, climate-induced displacement and environmental fragility, technological disruption and digital misinformation, youth unemployment, and demographic pressure. The realities demand legislatures that are not reactive but anticipatory.
The CPA Africa region continues to promote parliamentary democracy, good governance, and cooperation among African legislatures. The meeting wraps up today, Friday, March 6, with expected recommendations to strengthen the association's administrative and legislative capacity. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mende, reporting from Banjul.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview focuses on Ghana as the country marks its 69th independence anniversary today, March 6, 2026. The anniversary commemorates the end of British colonial rule and the country's attainment of sovereignty on March 6, 1957. As part of the event, President John Dramani Mahama delivered a national address calling on citizens to go beyond celebration by ensuring sustainable independence and progressive attitudes. However, a section of Ghanaians, particularly the youth, are calling on the government to place a greater focus on tackling unemployment. They describe the unemployment as one of the country's most pressing challenges. Our guest is Dr. Amaki Boateng, a governance expert and political science lecturer at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Ghana. He speaks about the significance, progress, and challenges of the country's independence.
Independence has something unique in it. And if you don't have it, there's the likelihood that you take it for granted. You know, in the days of colonialism, Ghanaians, if you like, were not necessarily citizens of their own country, citizens of the land. They were more or less subject to the colonialists. And so what independence really does is that generally it restores one's dignity as a human being. You are a bona fide member of your country, of your land. You are a sovereign person, and that, to me, is an end in itself. The liberation that independence gives to the individual. Ghana is going through what I call a transition. Actually, the journey has been very long, 69 years. It has not been so fruitful. And so what is happening now is that Ghana, in a way, has come to terms with its reality and is going through the transition that it needs to go through.
After Kwame Nkrumah's overthrown, how can you assess the ability of successive leaders? Have they effectively implemented the vision of Nkrumah to greatly contribute to the retardation of the country's growth?
Actually, that is where the crisis started. Because, yes, the grand vision was shared by everybody. The need to make Ghana great. The need to expropriate Ghana's natural resources for the benefit of Ghanaians. The challenge has been how to get there. And that is where many people see Nkrumah as faulting, because somehow he couldn't share the vision, that aspect about how to get there, even with key members in his party. And so after his overthrow, several of them joined in the celebration. And that was a betrayal. So Ghana has been out and searching. So as we know, Ghana is in its fourth republic now. It has not been easy. Ghana has, if you like, been in the wilderness.
With the current leadership of President John Dramani Mahama and his resetting agenda, does that repose some confidence in the country in all sectors?
Actually, President Mahama, watching his policies, the way they are being implemented, I don't have any doubt that President Mahama has the same, if you like, understanding. And so the agenda to reset Ghana. The way Ghana has been structured and functioning has not been satisfactory. There is a need to reset Ghana, to make Ghana work in a way that will meet the aspirations, needs of Ghanaians. And in addition to the agenda to reset Ghana, President Mahama are to give us the Ghana we want.
Where do you want to see Ghana? What are the sectors you think that need to be vibrant to ensure that the independence of Ghana is reflected through the policies or through the livelihoods of the citizens?
Generally, there are two main sectors, agriculture and industry. And it should be possible for us to link the two industries so that the supply chain will all come in, work to generate jobs, that will really be rewarding, jobs that will help Ghanaians to really live lives worthy of children in their own country, independent children of Africa. Somehow, we are blessed with a lot of natural resources, and then it should go side by side with industry. Initially, we should consciously move to address the challenge of having to buy food from outside. Ghana should not be exporting raw cocoa beans. Ghana should not be exporting any material in its raw nature.
Dr. Amaki Boateng is a governance expert and political science lecturer at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Ghana. Well, in sports, Africa's football governing body, Confederation of African Football, CAF, has postponed the 2026 edition of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations, WAFCON. The tournament, to be hosted by Morocco, will now take place from July 25 to August 16, instead of the earlier March-April schedule. CAF says that the decision followed consultations with FIFA and other stakeholders to ensure the success of the competition. The event will also serve as a qualifier for the next FIFA Women's World Cup, with top 4 teams securing spots. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Omo Danyogo for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WDR English. I am Sankule Jibril Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your